Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are making a homemade pasta sauce, spaghetti sauce, meat sauce, whatever you want to call it, red gravy as some people say. So once you start making your own homemade sauce and you start tasting some of the store-bought varieties, you're going to notice a big difference. There are a couple store brands that I like, but making your own is very affordable and it tastes so good. So there's a lot of variations. I am going to link in the description the original recipe that I start with, okay? I'm also going to note the changes to that I made in this video, so you have a good understanding of where you're going. Okay, so I'm going to show you the ingredients I'm using today, and then I'm going to go back through and talk to you about some substitutions and things you can do. So I have some Marsala wine here. I always keep this on hand. I love to make chicken Marsala. This is just cheap Marsala wine that I always use. I have a 105 ounce can of tomato sauce, which is also 6.9 ounces. And I have a 6 ounce can of tomato paste. Today I'm using 2 pounds of ground beef and 1 pound of hot Jimmy Dean sausage. I've got some onions, some garlic, some chopped red peppers and orange peppers here that were frozen. I'm just going to use a portion of those. I've got sliced mushrooms, baby bellas, and then I have Parmesan cheese, dried basil, dried basil, dried oregano, dried parsley, and this is a brown sugar replacement. That's very good by Swerve. So we're going to be using that. So now let's talk about some switch ups here. So as far as the meat goes, you don't have to put meat in your sauce. It does add a depth and to the sauce, but you don't have to. And as far as what meat, a combination of a sausage and beef is nice, but then again, you don't have to. I could make all sausage. I could do all hamburger. I could do 1.5 pounds of each. I could do 1 pound of each. It's all how much meat you want in the sauce. So I would recommend sticking close to the recipe to begin with and then branching off from there. Okay, another improvisation is using a red wine instead of a Marsala. You're going to cook off the alcohol, so no worries there. Don't concern yourself. Another thing, I always use tomato sauce. Now, if I happen to have some cans that I came across of some other tomatoes, I would throw them in. Like if I had half crushed tomatoes, half tomato sauce, that would be fine. Okay, so you can improvise a little there, but you want somewhere around this amount of tomato type of product, and you don't want it all to be like stewed tomatoes or something like that. So, but you can mix it up a little. You could throw in, maybe 48 ounces of chopped tomatoes if you had that, in with some tomato sauce and some crushed tomatoes. The tomato paste, I always stick with that as 6 ounces. Mushrooms, this is kind of an optional thing. You can put more or less. Peppers, green versus colored peppers do offer a slight flavor difference, but it's not a huge deal. And then as far as the sugar replacement, this, of course, if you're not worried about making a sugar-free sauce, you could use sugar, and a lot of times I do. It just so happens today I'm going to use the sugar replacement to make this keto-friendly, THM-friendly, just no sugar in it is what I'm going for today. Sometimes I use white sugar, sometimes I use brown sugar. Honestly, I enjoy the diversity and like the depth that brown sugar adds. So that's my go-to in sauce is brown sugar. But you can experiment with that as you like. So first step is we're going to brown this meat. So I'm just going to put it together in a big pot and brown it. Now, I just use one big pot for the whole procedure. There's my coffee. For the whole procedure, because I don't like dirtying another pot or, you know, a skillet in addition. So I'm gonna brown the meat in here. Then I'm gonna strain the meat, you know, to get the extra grease off. And then I'm gonna go right back to using this big pot. So let's get this meat cooking. So here we have the meat in the stock pot, and we're getting ready to fry it up here. I wanted to mention, I was using a hot sausage, or I am using a hot sausage. You can use a sweet sausage, you can use, you know, a sausage with thyme, you can use whatever you want. If I don't use a hotter sausage, I generally wind up putting some red pepper in my sauce. So again, it's up to you. Additionally, I want to mention that you can hear my meat starting to sizzle there. This makes a ton of sauce. So we're a little frozen here. I had to defrost it. But this makes a ton of sauce. So what you can do is freeze this in smaller amounts, or do some freezer meals with it. What I'm going to do, so my whole plan today was I was going to make myself a low-carb, sugar-free eggplant parmesan type of bake. And then I was going to feed my children and my family spaghetti with the sauce. So the sauce is going to be used for both of those items. And ideally, I'm hoping I should have enough to freeze, and then I'll be able to use that at a future time as well. So I'm going to get this all fried up, and then I will bring you back. So this right here, I interrupt this to tell you about pasta sauce. Del Grosso's is my favorite go-to store brand spaghetti sauce. This is made in Pennsylvania, and they actually have a really cool little amusement park, water park as well. Anyways, my favorite. But if you look at the ingredients here, you can see tomato puree, onions, 2% or less of the following: cayenne, celery, garlic, lemon juice, sugar, olive oil, basil. We have Romano cheese, salt, spices. So this sauce has a very good flavor to it, and it's not quite the same as the homemade, but it's a good substitute. But what I have noticed since making my own sauce over the years and canning my own sauce with my own tomatoes and things, a lot of sauces that you buy in the store have a starch added to them to kind of thicken the product. And I have found that the sauces that have the starches added really just don't have the flavor, and they taste almost bland in comparison to the real deal. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Check that out when you're looking at sauces at the store. When I am trying, this is sometimes difficult for me to find. Not all of my stores around here carry this. So I stock up on it when I go to a store that has it. If I don't have sauce made, or in the freezer, I don't want to make sauce or whatever. But I will compare other sauces in a pinch. And I always go for the ones that don't have a starch added, because they have so much better flavor. But anyways, I just want to share that with you. So here we go. I have my meat straining. It's nice and brown. You want to make sure it's a good brown. That does add some flavor. Not a whole lot of grease for 3 pounds of meat, especially one of them being 1 pound being sausage. This beef was from a cow we bought, and the hamburger has been very lean, which is wonderful. But so now you wouldn't necessarily have to do this. I do this. Some people do not. That is a preference thing. But some meat is very fatty, and that does alter taste. I mean, you don't want your sauce to be, you know, have that sensation that like coats your mouth in grease. Now, you could even take it so far as to rinse this with hot water, you know, to get off some extra fat, but I'm not going to do that. I do believe that a little fat does enhance the flavor, but I just don't want like a bucket load of sauce. So I'm just gonna let this strain here, and it's just dripping. I'll just leave it sit for a little bit. And we're gonna go ahead and deglaze the pan with some marsala. And then we're gonna put our veggies in, and we're gonna put our meat back in and our sauce back in. We are not going to put the mushrooms in at this point, but we are gonna put in the other veggies. So there was never, and you can see there's a little grease in there. That's okay. There was never a measurement of wine. I put in it probably about half a cup or so, maybe a little, or marsala. And we're gonna let that come to a boil. I'm gonna turn my temperature back up here. And just kind of move it around. Get everything cleaned off. Depending on your meat and your pan, you may have a little more to deglaze, as they say. Now, my onion and my peppers are going to be small chunks in the sauce. If your family is very opposed to any little chunks in their sauce, you could take an immersion blender at the end and kind of break this down. But really, when you make this sauce, you're going to either put it in a crock pot and let it simmer for 5 to 6 hours, or you're going to cook it on the stove for a few hours just to get those flavors mingled together, so they will really, really cook down. And you can really chop up your onions pretty small. You can see I try to cut mine fairly small. All right, so just let this do its thing here for a minute or so. This is my new little garlic gadget that minces garlic up really nicely. You do have to peel the garlic before you put it in here, but you would just peel it light here and then you crush it down. So I'm using approximately 5 cloves of garlic. That's another thing you can alter to your own personal taste. If you like super garlicky sauce, then you could add, you know, twice as much garlic or 3 times as much. All right, so let's go ahead and throw our onions in. And the pepper. I'm just gonna put a good handful of peppers in. Maybe a smidgen more. And then the garlic. You can see what that looks like, just little, kind of like, it's like minced. And it smells really yummy. Okay, we're gonna let this kind of simmer here a couple minutes, and in the meantime, I'm gonna open my cans of tomato sauce and tomato paste. Okay, so the veggies are starting to give off their fragrances, and we are ready to add our sauce. So I've got, oops, I'm making a mess. I've got my tomato sauce open. It's kind of leaking. Just gonna pour that in. I need to get this lid off because it's causing problems. Right, and see there's a little left in there. I'm just gonna put a smidgen of water, try to clean it out. And then I'll put that back, pour the rest of that in. And the tomato paste. I'm just gonna add that right in. Goodness, sometimes my tomato paste comes out a little better than that. That was quite the challenge. Yeah. Okay. Right. All right, now I'm ready to add in a little bit of water that I used to rinse out the can. You can see it's not too much. And, you know, I can cook this extra water off as I am cooking. So it's good to get all the good stuff out. I don't want to throw any of that out. See, now look how nice and clean the can is. Okay, now to this, we are going to add back in our meat, which at this point should be about done dripping. Yep. So we're going to pour that back in and then just kind of stir it all together, and we'll be ready to add some more items. Okay, so here we go. We are ready. About fourth to a third of a cup of Parmesan cheese is what I'm putting in. 2 tablespoons of bagel. No, why do I keep doing that? 2 tablespoons of basil, 2 tablespoons of oregano, and 1 tablespoon of parsley. And then this is the brown sugar substitute. It like packs and looks really close to brown sugar. Very similar. So I'm putting 1/4 a cup of that in. And if we look over here, you can see I've got the hamburger in here and the sausage. Just gonna give this a stir. It's starting to give off glorious fragrances. Okay, so now we're gonna just add those spices and seasonings in and additives. So we've got the parm cheese, the brown sugar, and all the dried items. And we're just gonna stir this around. And you can see, even with that water, it's very thick. Now, when I put the mushrooms in, mushrooms give off a lot of liquids as they're cooking. They have great flavor. So that is going to impact things a little bit, and I am going to put a good bit of mushrooms in. We're ready for our mushroom. This time I happen to be adding, probably about 2.5, 3 cups of mushrooms. And now we are going to just let this cook and cook and cook. You could let this simmer all day. You know, start it in the morning. You can put it in the crock pot, as I had mentioned. It's just a marrying of the flavors. So I will bring you back when this is cooked a little bit, and you can get an idea of what it's looking like. So folks, I'm all finished. As you can see, this wasn't that difficult. It's not as, intimidating as it sounds to make your own sauce. And oh my goodness, will you wow your family and friends? But look at it. Now this has been cooking a couple hours on a low simmer. I have a simmer burner that just, does a real low simmer. I'm going to continue to let this just simmer till dinner time. But since it did cook a couple hours already, I did construct my eggplant casseroles, and you can see there's a good bit of sauce in here. Plenty for my family tonight. But my casseroles here, I have 2 that I made. One I'm gonna cook in the oven. So there is a non-pasta option for myself. Lots of yummy eggplant. The other I'm gonna freeze and cook at another time. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you give this recipe a try, and I hope that you expand on it and make it your own and enjoy it. So thanks for watching. Check out my other videos and have a great day.